Our mission at 59 North Sailing is quite simply to share the wisdom of the high seas with those wise enough to seek it out.
I drank a pint of beer, me grief and tears to smother, off to reap the corn, left where I was born, cut a stout blackthorn to banish ghosts and goblins, brand new pair of brogues, frightened all the dogs, rattled all the bogs, on the rocky road to Dublin, 1 to 3 for 5.
Hey guys, welcome to Isbjörn, our 1972 Sparkman & Stevens Swan 48. This was my dream boat before I even knew what it was. I used to drive by it when I worked on the schooner Woodwind in Annapolis, in and out of Back Creek. There was this blue boat sitting there. It was called Patriot at the time, and I was like, that is one sexy boat. And when we were looking for a boat in 2015, it came up on Yacht World, and we bought it literally before we even saw it ourselves. Bought it sight unseen. The boat's got a lot of history. It was actually seized for running drugs by the Coast Guard in the mid-70s. It was first launched before that as a boat called War Baby, which has a famous racing pedigree if you're into racing sailing. And then it was called Insurgent at the Naval Academy for 20 years. The Coast Guard got it, gave it to the Naval Academy, used as a training vessel there for a while. And then it changed hands a few times until we got it in 2015. And we go anywhere between the Caribbean, Nova Scotia, here in Europe. We've met people that they know the boat and they've sailed on the boat, and it's really cool owning a boat with that much history and hearing all these stories. We've gotten old photos. The boat was in Jaws 2, the movie, so it's been a really cool experience. It really feels like we're taking care of the boat as opposed to owning it because of that long history.
So when we bought the boat, Andy knew before we even bought it that he wanted to name it Isbjörn. I'm not really sure why, but you just had it in your head. And Isbjörn means polar bear in Swedish. It literally translates to ice bear. And I think when you name a boat, you should consider it's easy to pronounce and easy to spell. And I think we failed on both of those parts, except for Swedes.
Yeah, really. It worked in Sweden, but nowhere else.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about the boat is the clean cockpit. You don't see a chart plotter at the helm. All you see is this beautiful C-Plath compass. Mia just did some leather on the wheel this year. That came in very handy in the Arctic. And this stainless steel bar is so simple. You can stand back here and you can hang on with one hand and you can drive with the other. And when you're back at the helm, all you see is a clear view of whatever you're looking at. You can see the sails very easily. We put the bimini back at night so we can stargaze and everything, so we put that up when it's hot. And it's just a nice clean space. The boat was built as an ocean racing boat, and they didn't compromise any of the sailing systems for comfort. So some things that are kind of annoying at the dock, like for example, the Traveler, it's in the right spot for sailing, has the main sheet at the end of the boom, you can operate the Traveler right here, but you've got to climb over it to get in and out of the boat. So I always prefer to have the sailing systems be the priority. Some people don't, but that's how I like it, and the way we use the boat, we're sailing it more often than we're at anchor or at the marina, so it works really well. Secondary winches up forward, they control the main sheet and the mainsail control lines. Primary winches for the Genoa sheets. The only thing I'd change on the boat, and people ask me this a lot, is what do you miss? I'd have one more winch back here, and I'd have the primaries bigger. So I feel like you can never have too many winches and they can't be too big. But it works pretty well and I'm happy with it, but that's on my wish list.
Do you know what the joke is? If your marina neighbors aren't laughing at you, your anchor's not big enough. So we decided to go with a Rockna 40 when we bought the boat. We replaced the anchor that was there, and it's a 40 kilo anchor, 88 pound, and we've had it since we bought the boat.
So Isbjörn has the tall rig version. Swans made usually a cruising and a regatta version, which was the racing version. And there's a quote from Moitessier from, I think it was the Long Way book, one of his books, where he said he was installing the masts on Joshua and he wanted to find the tallest rig that he could find, and his quote was, "You can always shorten sail, you can never raise your mast." So I love that philosophy, and kind of was a coincidence. The boat came with a tall rig, we didn't have the option, but I'm very happy that it did. It's a few feet taller than standard, so you get a little extra sail area, and I'd say we actually probably do reef earlier than maybe we would otherwise. So as for the sails, we also got new sails in 2016. We expect, with the amount of sailing we're doing, 10,000 miles a year or so, we count our sail usage in mileage instead of years. So we're hoping to get 50 to 60,000 miles out of this current suit of sails. They're made from, it's called hydronet cloth, which is a Spectra and Dacron weave. So they're pretty high tech, they're very expensive for cruising sails, but again, we should get 60,000 miles out of them, which is more than standard Dacron. And that, on our schedule, is about 5 to 6 years or so. And as far as the sail inventory, we've got a big Genoa, a small Genoa, so the big one's about 135, small one's about 105, and we've got the three reefs in the mainsail. We don't carry a storm trysail. And then we have a removable inner forestay, which is made out of Dyneema, and that has an inner staysail on it that is basically used as a storm staysail. And up till now, we've never had to use it in anger, so knock on wood. Welcome aboard. All right, Isbjörn's nav station, the captain's table. Crew aren't allowed to eat or drink here. We've got coffee stains in the logbook to prove why. But basically, at the watch change, crew use a nav station to write in the logbook, which we keep inside here. So we write in the logbook, plot on the paper chart, which also stays in here, and do a few more things. It's on the watchkeeper's checklist. But I'm very particular with how our nav station's set up, and I want to keep it super simple. So we don't have a built-in chart plotter. We've got a permanent iPad down here. We've got a small iPad that this is kind of portable and can go out in the cockpit if we need it. We've got the Furuno commercial radar. That's a standalone radar unit, so it doesn't do anything else except radar, and it does radar really well. And the iPads are both running C-Pilot software, and the Vesper AIS unit we use has an app in it called Watchmate that's just an AIS plotter. So that runs side by side with C-Pilot, and that's basically the extent of our navigation. We've got the sat phone in the corner that I can connect to the iPads to download weather forecasts. We use a program called Weather 4D for that. I don't want to go into too much of that detail now because it's not the point of this tour, but I have this podcast called How I Think About Sailing, which is exactly what the title implies, and I did a whole episode on our nav setup. So you can find that on iTunes or right on our website. So check out How I Think About Sailing for kind of the full-blown 20-minute episode about how we set up our nav station.
So this is the engine on Isbjörn. It's located under the steps, and we have very easy access to most of the parts of it. And we replaced it last winter in Sweden. We decided to go with a Beta 60. And on our previous boat, we replaced it, the engine with a Beta 16, and really liked the simplicity of it, so we decided to go with a Beta again. And as you can see, it's blue, and normally standard marine engines on Betas are red, so they come in white for the generators, red for their marine diesels, and blue is actually their tractor Kubota blue color. But for no extra cost, we got it blue, and we really enjoy not having a red engine because that kind of gave us nightmares on the old one. We also have a high output alternator. It gives that 250 amp, which is a custom-made alternator for the boat, which is awesome.
Just to further comment on the alternator, you don't find a 250 amp alternator in a small case. So to get a little bit technical, it's got an external rectifier, which is basically a heat sink, and that's mounted under the floor. And this thing cost about $3,000, so way more expensive than your standard alternator. But the way we use the boat, when we're sailing, and we'll talk about this outside, we have Watson, our Watt&C hydrogenerator. So as long as we're making at least 6 knots offshore, we don't have to run the engine at all. And when we're at anchor or in places where we're not sailing, this charges up our 900 amp hour battery bank in about an hour. So it's a really nice combination. We have a little bit of solar, we have Watson when we're sailing, and we're doing 10,000 miles a year, so we're doing a lot of sailing. And the best example of how this works is going across the Atlantic last year. We went Bermuda to the Azores and did not turn the engine on a single time, didn't even turn it on for over 11 and a half days. Part of the reason Mia mentioned the simplicity of the Beta, but also they've made their maintenance items very accessible. So for example, That's the impeller right there. So the water pump impeller is right on the front of the engine. The old Yanmar was way back in the corner and impossible to get to. The fuel filter, the engine fuel filter is up high, very easy to change that. Dipstick for the oil is right here. Air filters right here. To prime, if you run out of fuel, to prime the injectors, there's a little hand pump right down here. So basically everything you need to maintain more or less on a regular basis is super easy. And Mia's going to show you the oil change pump that's built in as well. So it's an easy to maintain engine and runs really simple. Any diesel mechanic in the world can help you fix this thing.
On the back of the engine then we have the dual Raycor filter right here, and it's a built-in oil change pump here. So when it's time to change the oil, you just change it right here. So as you can see, it's pretty easy access to both of the sides of the engine, which is sweet.
So to be a little nerdy, the alternator I mentioned, that custom alternator, it has an external regulator. I won't go into what that means, but those boat nerds out there will know what that does. The external regulators in here, we have a switch to turn the alternator on or off. The reason we have that is at 250 amps, it's robbing about 15 horsepower off the engine. So if you're in a situation where you need all the power to get in and out of a dock or in a windy anchorage, you can come down here, turn the alternator off, get the full horsepower on the engine.
So here's the galley of Isbjörn, and I like everyone who come on the boat to feel like home. So we have everything set up so people easily can access the galley. And it's actually not the best galley for offshore sailing. It was designed as a race boat, and you can see it's a pretty long way from the stove all the way to the nav table. So if you're on the high side cooking, it's a little bit of a challenge. But we've done a few things to try to improve it. We got this nice step from a guy who built it in Norway for us, so it's easier when you heel. And we installed the salt and freshwater foot pumps to make it better to conserve water offshore. So those are a few things that we did to the galley to improve it. Like I said, I like everyone to feel like home on the boat. So I have everything in the galley so people can be independent. And here is kind of food, coffee, tea and stuff on this side. And on this side we have plates and everything. And you can imagine too, it's a little bit hard when it's on the high side. You have to be a little bit careful when you open it up. When we got the boat, it had a microwave here, but that was the first thing we took off, and we replaced it with a snack vending machine. And the vending machine ferry comes and refill it every day. On the boat we have one hot meal together at 6 o'clock when we're sailing, and crew can then just make their own breakfast and lunches on their own.
Hurrah, hurrah for the girls of Dublin town. Hurrah for the bloody green flag and the harp without the crown. Yeah.
So another thing that we replaced last winter is a water maker, and we didn't really want to go with the water maker because we like the simplicity on the boat. But the boat only has 90 gallons of tanks, which is about 350 liter, and for the long passages with 6 crew we need to add some extra water. So we decided to go with a Cape Horn. It's a Spectra, the brand, so Spectra Cape Horn Extreme is it called. And it gives about 12 gallons an hour, and takes about 15 amps an hour when it runs. And normally on the boat we have it running after dinner when we do dishes, so it's just topping up a tank basically every day.
So inside the boat, gotta start with the chain locker. I used to love this as a kid. So you could live in there, but it's basically just the anchor chain locker. So that's all the way forward. 4-peak, people call it the V-berth, whatever. 2 crew sleep up here. Know that there are single bunks. The boat was built as a race boat, specifically an ocean racing boat to carry a lot of crew. So 2 people up here. We've got lee boards underneath with a little extra Dyneema strap just in case for the big guys. So 2 crew sleep up here, and then the sail storage is underneath these bunks. So we're putting the boat away for the season now. Everything's super organized, but it normally doesn't look this nice. So through the hallway, note that it's only a little bit wider than my shoulders. So this is actually the best place to change clothing or put your foul weather gear on. So normally crew hang their fallies on the hooks here, and you can wedge up against this side or wedge up against this side as you're getting dressed. And that's the biggest difference between a purpose designed and built offshore boat like this versus modern boats that are designed for charter or marina living. You can still do offshore sailing on them, but it's not as purpose-built for that, and you really notice that on a boat like this. So working our way aft, you can literally monkey your way from the V-berth all the way to the companionway without letting go. And this table is through-bolted into the keel, so I can put all my weight on that. That's not going anywhere. And even if I do stumble, I don't have too far to fall because of the space. Pilot bunks, 2 more crew sleep out here. Settee bunks are here. Normally crew can, the four-peak crew get first dibs on sleeping in the settee bunks if we're going upwind and it's uncomfortable up there. And then we have lee cloths that are under the cushions. They attach here and here and make the cabin nice and tidy.
So here's the aft cabin. This is where Andy and I sleep when we are on the boat. And it's a very romantic boat. It has 2 single bunks, but it's perfect for offshore. We have lee boards coming up and also have our own head here. And it's kind of nice to have our own little cabin back here when we're on the boat.
Alright, and not like we eat at the table offshore, but when we're in port, the table opens up so we can fit like 8 people around this table, which is really nice for hosting people. It was especially nice in the Arctic this summer when we were spending a lot of time in the boat.
Welcome to your storage locker. Each crew will get a locker on the boat. The guys up in the forepeak, they will get a hanging locker, and the guys in the salon who lives in the pilot bunks, they will get a locker here. There you go.
So our good friend Ben likes to say real sailors sit to pee, and if you've ever sailed offshore, upwind, heeled over at 30 degrees, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. But it is a safety thing. The head is the most likely place you're going to get injured on the boat. So let's have a look. Okay, so the head, 3 handholds. You'll use all of them, I promise, depending on how rough it is. The most important thing we tell crew in the toilet is no toilet paper whatsoever. And when I get to know you a little bit better, I'll tell you some horror stories about that. So toilet paper goes in the bucket under the counter, and the toilet paper fairy comes and takes it out every night. We do have a shower in the head, but we tend not to use it because it makes a mess and it makes it wet in here. So we have an Isbjörn tradition of stopping to swim offshore, and we typically shower in the ocean. Even did that up in the Arctic, and then there's a shower in the cockpit where we can rinse the salt off. But if it's a particularly cold day, or if crew really want to, they can use the head shower down here. We just had a little bit of gotta do a little bit of cleanup. So, like I said at the beginning, Isbjörn truly is our dream boat.
It's my dream boat too. It's our dream boat, I think.
Yeah. And the more we sail it, the more it really becomes that way. We've done almost 30,000 plus miles in the 4 years that we've sailed the boat, and we're continuing to make improvements. We did that major refit last year. We didn't show this in the video, but we just had a guy, Nick, come by who's going to do some carpentry work for us while the boat's in Portugal. So we're keeping making it our own, and it's just getting closer and closer to being the perfect offshore boat and really what I want out of a good blue water sailboat.
If you like the tour and want to see more what we do, just go to the website. It's 59-north.com, and you can see the link below.
Yeah, and we've got a few more videos on YouTube, so if you want to subscribe to our YouTube channel, that's at 59 North Sailing. And best of all, check out our Instagram. We do a lot of awesome stuff on Instagram. There's been some particularly neat stuff from our Arctic summer this year. Polar bears, walrus, beluga. So
drone
check that out.
shots.
Lots of drone shots. How to fly the drone offshore. Working on a video about that. But anyway, that's also 59 North Sailing on Instagram. And we really had a lot of fun with that. And last but not least, of course, you can come sailing with us. We've got our calendar published for 2019 and 2020. We're 2 years out, which is a little bit scary, but those bunk availabilities are available on 59-north.com/offshore. So we hope to see you on the high seas.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie.
See you.